Hello, this is Chuck Crumpton, and welcome to another episode of the Chuck Crumpton Show. I tell you what, I'm so excited to just be back in front of the microphone, talking to you. It's been amazing, the journey we've had with the podcast. We are now in our third year, which is just amazing. The things have gone and grown so well over these 3 years. But first and foremost, I want to thank you for just being a part of my audience, being a friend of the show. And I think this episode is probably going to rank up there as one of the best, if not the best ever. So I'm really excited to kick off 2024 with this episode. 3 quick favors, if you would. Please subscribe to the show. It just makes it easy, sort of cookies at eye level. Share the episode. This episode is going to be life-changing, I promise you. And if you would leave a review, we are privileged and honored to get a lot of 5-star reviews, and your review just helps us with our algorithms to make the show bigger and better. I do this show as a way to give back. I do not monetize the show. I do not make money with the show, but these are messages and concepts and ideas and conversations that the world needs to listen to. So that's why we do the Chuck Crumpton Show. So if you would, please subscribe, share, leave me a review, hopefully a 5-star review. If it's 1 star, I'd rather you just leave and find another podcast. But hopefully you'll enjoy and get a lot of benefit from today's conversation. And if you have any issues, if you want to have an idea to make the show better, you can reach me. Chuck at bullstreetmergers.com is my direct email. And you're also welcome to go on our website, bullstreetmergers.com. You can find our phone number there. You can call me and say, Chuck, you're doing a great job with the show, or here are 14 areas that you can improve. I'm very, very, very open, because this show is all about you. And we'll be right back right after this.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of The Chuck Crumpton Show, a non-for-profit podcast making a difference, where conversations are real and raw. We are grateful for your support as we build one of the fastest growing podcasts in the U.S. Please subscribe. More information can be found at thechuckcrumptonshow.com. Thank you for listening. Here's Chuck.
Thank you, Megan, and welcome again to another episode of The Chuck Crumpton Show. I love business. And I believe that small businesses with 2 to 200 employees in America is the engine that drives our world economy. The messages you hear from the Chuck Crumpton Show are real world business perspectives. I've been incredibly blessed to have built and sold 2 of my own companies, both that started in the tool shed of my garage. As a matter of fact, this podcast started in the tool shed. My wife tends to think I have an affinity toward tool shed living. Maybe that's true. I am a practitioner of business. This is not a conversation about business theory. There are tons of colleges and universities in America that can talk to you about theory, but this is real life stuff. At Bull Street Mergers, we help business owners build and sell remarkable companies. If we can help you, please reach out to us at bullstreetmergers.com. Okay. Enough of the commercial. Let's get after this. This is an incredible opportunity, and I'll unpack that in just a moment. But I want to take a quick moment to introduce our guest today, Shay Houser. Welcome to the Chuck Crumpton Show.
Chuck, good to be here, bud.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to give a moment of vulnerability, my vulnerability, in just a moment. But I want to lay the foundation. I want to give a background of your success and your background, and then we're just going to unpack life and business. 1991, graduate of the Citadel, which is right down the road from me. Wonderful, wonderful institution. Interesting enough, you've done over $1 billion in mergers and acquisitions, which is an incredible feat. Not many people can say that. And you live in the beautiful city of Greenville, South Carolina. Um,
You got
and
it.
this is a rare privilege because not all of my guests on the Chuck Crumpton Show are friends of mine, but you are my friend.
Heck yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, man.
30 years of experience
That's right.
together.
That's right. We go
Yeah.
back 30 years. And, in full transparency, we did some work together and built our early friendship years ago. And then we all went our separate ways as life happens, right? And we recently reconnected in the last 3 years or so. And it's been a real gift, real privilege for me to say that. Um, and I want to give a moment of vulnerability because I believe in that. I embrace vulnerability, and I will tell my audience when Shay and I connected, when you and I connected a couple years ago,
Hmm.
I was so drawn to your story. Your success as a business person far exceeds the folks that you know. It's a national reputation of business success. Um, but I was drawn to your story, and I wanted you to be a part of my podcast because we reach thousands and thousands and thousands of people, a lot of CEOs, a lot of business leaders. And with the Chuck Crumpton Show, I've always wanted to combine business and life because our lives are not generally not compartmentalized, right? So I listened to your story and I said, I got to have Shay. I've just got to have Shay on my podcast. So for the first time ever, I packed up my stuff, my recording equipment, drove to Greenville, South Carolina, sat in one of the beautiful buildings on Main Street. We just happened to be right next door to the governor, who was in a room beside of us. And I don't know, I will not blame it on him. I'll blame it squarely on me. But for whatever reason, it was the worst, if I could say, shittiest production I've ever had in my life. Uh, just horrible. And the content was, and what's so sad, man, the content was amazing, yet the production quality was so far subpar of what I want and expect on the show that I humbly, a month later, I had to call Shay and just say, dude, I screwed up, man. I just made the worst mistake with all these buttons and levels and pots and all that kind of stuff. So, Shay, you graciously said, Chuck, forget about it. Let's redo this. And that's exactly what we're doing. Um,
Yeah.
and so, thank you for your graciousness. Thank you for the gift of a redo. Um, and I believe in this. I would have otherwise probably let it go, but your message is so important for my audience and for the world. I had to redo. So thank you, my friend.
Hey, man, I'm happy to be here. No doubt.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I want to go back to the reference point that I made. My wife and I were driving as we reconnected, a few years ago. Uh,
Mhm.
I was driving down the road and, I was trying to sort of get refreshed with my friend Shay Houser. And I found something online uh, that was a TED Talk that you did, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And the title of the TED Talk, which I encourage everybody, go and listen. The title of the TED Talk was Addiction in the C-Suite. And Shay, honestly, that completely grabbed my heart. And frankly, I would like to spend the next 4 hours, uh, going, going through the compelling nature of that story. But would and time just doesn't permit that. But I encourage everyone, go find that talk. It's incredible. It will change your life. But let's just tee up this. I want to get in. I have a ton of business questions for you, particularly around M&A, but let's lay the foundation of who Shay Houser is, was, where you are, and we'll talk about where you're headed with your business and all the
Mhm.
wonderful things that you're doing. But would you just for a couple of minutes sort of tell that story because it's an incredible story?
No, I appreciate you saying that. Thanks so much, Chuck. Really. Well, I mean, like a lot of hard chargers, like a lot of entrepreneurs, I've always kind of run fast, run hard. And, I did it through the Citadel. That's probably one of the reasons I went to Citadel, frankly, was, I needed it. I needed the structure and I needed the discipline. I'd gotten in a lot of trouble in high school, more than the average person. And, that was a good school for me. But when I got out of school, I was super fortunate because I went to work for a telecommunications company back in Greenville where I'd grown up. And pure luck, that company, corporate telemanagement group, the founders believed in employee ownership. And, I had no clue what I was doing. I was, the 11th employee there, along with my best friend. We were number 10 and 11. And we went to work for that company and learned a ton. And, we're granted some stock. And that was back when you could go to the bank and just like borrow money to buy stock,
Right.
which is what we did, both of us. And that company grew really quickly and that company exited in 1995. And, I got a little windfall. And I remember thinking, that was easy. Like, I just need to go do this myself, right? Very naive and certainly had no clue what I was getting into. And that really led to my first startup, which is a venture fund here in Greenville with some of the original founders of that company. We invested in telecommunication services companies. And, again, kind of luck of the draw, we were investing really as the dot-com boom was accelerating and started putting money to work in 96, 97, 98 timeframe and invested in one company in particular called iBasis. We invested $1 million and they went public and then did a secondary, and the secondary was done at $120 a share.
Wow.
So we turned $1 million into $120 million. Now, of course, ultimately it dropped and we were able to distribute $40 million to our investors. And again, I'm thinking, it's really easy, man. Why didn't everybody else do this? Right.
Right.
And just that naivety and arrogance. But that was also the time I realized at that point, venture capital wasn't really for me. And I wanted to start my own gig, like really start my own company. And I went back to some of the folks from that previous organization. We started a company called Trivergent Communications, another telecommunications company. And that was kind of late 97, early 98. Place mark. Up until that time, as I went through high school and college, I struggled a lot with drugs and alcohol, a lot of drinking, equal opportunity drug user, throughout. And when I got out of Citadel and went to work for the first company, corporate telemanagement group, I really dialed it back and I was entirely focused on business. I didn't drink during the week. I put the drugs up and I was really, from my perspective, I was straight. I was level-headed. I was focused on what I thought was important, which at the time was making money. Later found out that was not important, but at the time, that's what I was chasing. So as I got through the venture fund and then started Trivergent Communications, the company was gaining success. We were raising capital, 10 and 20 million bucks at a time and hiring people. And I think by the time, 1999 rolled around, we were at 200 people. So really my first startup, 200 people, growing hyper fast. And the partying picked up. So the alcohol picked up again, the drugs picked up again. And I was able to, kind of manage it for a period of time. And I think like a lot of folks that struggle with it, as I did, it slowly got worse and worse. Now, the company in the meantime was having enormous success. We filed for an IPO. We raised over $250 million in equity, $250 million in private debt. We were buying companies and it was pure craziness. We ultimately didn't go public and we ended up merging the company with a Goldman Sachs backed organization, which is a whole nother story. But a lot of that period, the addiction started to take hold. But like my life started to get out of control. And without getting into like all the sort of details, the company ultimately, Trivergent, got recapitalized by Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase and KKR at the time, all the big guys.